So our team is me, Andy, Mohammed, Ibrahim, and also Ferdinand from Phoenix, and we are willing to do progress bar JavaScript components. And I am not cheating because I didn't do it yet, Lau. It's cheating. You did it before, which was meant to do. I will keep that in mind for the next time. But jokes apart, our project is basically about componentizing a JavaScript library. I can show you guys what it would like. So basically, the idea is to have an SVG animated in a way that anyone can use in OutSystems. So we will get mostly this library with all these functions and try to do an OutSystems component for it. And just a second, let me go back to the presentation. I want to present it. And our challenge is basically, oh, sorry, technical issues. And our challenge is basically to implement this JavaScript library as an OutSystems component, right? So because of that, we thought it would be nice for us to talk a little bit about JavaScript best practices in the platform, because as simple as it seems, in fact, without systems, never mind, it is simple. It's true. It's simple. Okay, you guys got me. But if you are trying to do something with JavaScript in the platform, you have to take some things in mind. You have to keep some things in mind. And they are the best practice that OutSystems recommends. To talk a little bit about that and to share a little bit of knowledge, we defined 3 rules. The first one would be something about try always to use OutSystems as much as possible instead of JavaScript. But if it's not possible, like our case, we need to componentize JavaScript library, so we will not be able to do it with pure OutSystems. So in this case, if you have to use this type of JavaScript or this type of level of JavaScript, please keep in mind that first, you should always try to wrap your actions in the most granular way as possible, and also keep your code's comments all the time. So here, for example, I did an example. It's a generic example. It's not actually the functions that we will need. But what I did is I created a client action with JavaScript nodes calling the function, passing the parameters as input parameters that we will need. So instead of having a bunch of JavaScript calling everything, always keep in mind that the best practice is to wrap your function in a client action and use this client action as the action to call the actual JavaScript. Okay. The second rule is about files, JavaScript files. And in our case, when using the JavaScript library that we want, eventually we will need to import a huge file with all the functions in OutSystems. And we have a best practice for that. Actually, we have some ways to do that in OutSystems, but the preferable way is always to import the file as a resource and make sure the file is minified. For those who doesn't know what a minified file is, you can see here the difference between something that is not minified and something that is minified. You can see that you usually don't have spaces. Normally, when you use some sort of third-party tool to minify your codes, it also changes the names of the variables for example, just a one letter. That will help you to increase the performance in runtime of your JavaScript codes. So it's a very important thing to keep in mind. Okay. Also, the same thing apply for CSS style sheets. We may not be using it for our project, but I thought it would be very nice to share with you guys that every time you need to use some sort of style sheet, external style sheet, it's nice to keep in mind that you should also, if possible, of course, import it as a resource and minify the file. Okay. And our third and honorable mention rule, and I will explain in a bit why it's a honorable mention, is about using the JavaScript at the bottom of the screen. Uh, Not sure if everyone knows, but back in the old good times, not sure if it was so good indeed, but anyway, back in the good old times, we had the traditional web apps. We still have it, but normally now new projects are using reactive web apps, and we don't have to worry too much about it. But when we use it, the traditional web apps, you could just inject JavaScript all over your screen. And it created a huge problem sometimes because some JavaScripts were too heavy that when you try to import it at the beginning of your screen, it just like freeze your screen every time you try to import things. So keep in mind that if using traditional web apps with JavaScript, always try to put the JavaScripts that you need. You don't need at the beginning of the flow at the bottom of your page to increase the performance and the load speeds. Basically, that's it. What I can promise, and I I also want a little bit of help from my team, is that you can expect to see the Phoenix logo animated at the ends of the components. Uh, it's a very you can see here that it's a very complex it's a very complex logo, but if we can animate it, we can animate anything else. So please expect to see that. It's a promise, and that's it. Thank you.